Hi everyone, I am in Paris and one of my favorite shows is Emily in Paris, and today in Paris I am going on an Emily in Paris tour, going on all of a walking tour of all the most famous spots that they film at. So stay tuned. In true Emily fashion, getting yelled at by the local Parisians. Let's retry that intro again. My name is Alyssa Cotten. Welcome back, or welcome to my YouTube channel. I am traveling through Paris this week for my birthday, and I am attending the Emily in Paris walking tour. We're gonna be going through all the most famous spots that they film at. If that's something you wanna see, stay tuned to the end to see all of the amazing spots that Emily in Paris is filmed at. And just behind the scenes, I'm gonna be filming with the walking tour, just giving you some insights. So if that's something you wanna see, let's get started. The Emily in Paris walking tour starts at her apartment, and it's an actual real apartment. So people actually live here, as you just saw in the clip, and it is in the 5th district. So in this little filming area, there's probably 4 or 5 really popular filming spots in the Emily in Paris walking tour. So this is an actual apartment, and her apartment that they film is actually in this area. And then this is her cute little courtyard, and you can see Gabrielle's restaurant is up there, her beautiful fountain courtyard. Then she gets her flowers. There's just so much happening in this little area. And if you can barely see, but if you look to the left, it actually says Universal Studios Filming. So I'm sure that's why they picked this area. Our tour guide was telling us how it's actually not legal to just host a dinner party in the middle without a permit. And I think Mindy actually makes a joke about that we don't need to ask for a permit, we'll just ask for forgiveness. So the dinner party is actually right here in this area. And as you can see, this is her area of her apartment is up on the top floor. And our tour guide was saying that there would be no way that Emily's stuff could fit in her apartment. And this is actually where Mindy and Emily ate, right here, which is so cool that all of these filming locations are just in this little corner. We've got Gabrielle's restaurant, and it's so cool. So the restaurant actually says Chef Gabrielle. And this restaurant apparently was not a real hot spot, and I guess after the show came out, the restaurant became so popular, long wait list to get a reservation. Our walking tour continued to go and get croissants, and actually this restaurant was voted number 2 for the best croissants in all of Paris. So that was really fascinating to kind of learn some behind the scenes. This is where Emily gets her famous chocolate croissant. This little pastry bakery was so amazing. We actually went back the next day to get a croissant here because it was so fluffy and so flaky. They had so many amazing things. And actually during this walking tour, I tried a croissant, and I am gluten-free, but everyone said that I could tolerate the gluten in France. And so I was so nervous, but had to. This is the best croissant, or the second best croissant in all of Paris. So I knew that I had to try one, and I didn't even get sick. So all of my gluten-free girlies, go to Paris and eat some gluten and you can tolerate it. So you can see right next to the bakery is the Chef Gabrielle's restaurant, and then that gray door is actually the Universal Studios filming location. I'm clearly in heaven. This croissant was so amazing. I was obsessed with it. So the walking tour continues, and everything that the walking tour was so close. It was just so fascinating how everything is. So we've got Emily, where her Chicago boyfriend breaks up with her, and we were able to walk around the Pantheon. Obviously, this is a huge famous location, but in the show, this is where her boyfriend says, "I'm not coming to Paris. You're on your own, kid," basically. So here is our amazing tour guide. She was giving us so much history, not just about Emily in Paris, but she was giving us so much history about Paris. She went above and beyond, and she actually was telling us that when the show first came out, people were doing unofficial Emily in Paris walking tours. And she actually told the company that she works for, we need to have an actual Emily in Paris walking tour. And she was the one that was able to create it. So I just thought that was so fascinating that it was her idea. And now it's this huge thing. So many agencies host the Emily in Paris walking tour. So this is Emily doing her morning run. We got to walk through the gardens. RT was telling us that one of the royals, when her husband died, she was in mourning, and she created this garden for her to be able to walk through. And when they had the revolution, it became a public park. And so now the government officials use this building as their offices, and the building is stunning, so incredible, and the gardens are so beautiful. We actually came back here another day just to walk through. There's this cute little pond where kiddos are doing sailboats, and they have all of this just beautiful areas to just look at. I mean, look at this. It kind of reminded me of Central Park. And I know this was obviously created before Central Park, but just look at the architect and everything that's so detail oriented. I'm just obsessed with everything. As our walking tour continued, we were walking throughout Paris, and we actually found a spot that Sylvie filmed a scene with. I can't recall who was in the scene, but Sylvie is in this part of the show, and so we were walking around and just seeing all the different architects that was a part of the show in this area. Our tour guide decided to take us on a different route, and she actually took us down the street that has the oldest restaurant in Paris. And she was talking about some of the most famous people that have eaten in this restaurant, and she was showing us on the outside how they have different photos of just really famous people that have eaten at this restaurant. And so I thought that was so cool. It had nothing to do with Emily in Paris, but we had to get to the other side of town, and so she took us to this little shortcut where we got to see all of these amazing restaurants and just so much happening. So here is the oldest restaurant in Paris, and she was telling us some dark history about this street and how there was a lot of executions and killings on this street. And she was saying it so nonchalantly, but she was like, yeah, Paris has a dark past, and here are some of the things. But by the way, this is the oldest restaurant in Paris. And as our walking tour continued, we were able to stop by a couple of locations that they've done some of their PR marketing firms. So for Pierre Cardin, one of his fashion shows was actually filmed right here, and she was doing cute little trivia of like what scene was filmed here, and we would all just guess. So this one was with the Pierre Cardin when he had the trash bags, and not the trash bags, but like the trash can moving thing was filmed in that location. The really nice thing about the tour that we went on, they cap it at 20 people, which was, I thought, the perfect amount of people. We had people from all over. We had people from Brazil, Australia, the States, other parts of Europe, which I thought was so cool. We all were chatting. Some people were there on holiday, some people were there on honeymoon, and just like hearing why people were there. And I really felt like the 20 people was the perfect amount to kind of keep everyone going, keep everyone moving forward in this walking tour, because we walked the entire portion of it. Here is the Seine where Emily does a lot of running next to, and then we have Mindy and Benoit doing their street vendor music, and this is the famous spot that they filmed it. This used to be where they would have the Love Bridge where you would actually put the locks, and it began to become so heavy that the bridge couldn't hold the weight of the locks, and so they actually had to change the style of the railing so that way you couldn't hook locks any longer. And I guess the government had to issue a statement that show your love by being in Paris, not by locking your things. So the next scene was at the Louvre, and we got to come walk around, and the Louvre was actually closed this day, so this is why it was pretty empty. Otherwise this area was so crowded. And she was talking about how they do different festivals out here, which is why the scene where Emily and Camille and Mindy, I think maybe and Sylvie, were eating outside of the Louvre, but we ended up coming to the Louvre the next day, and it is just a stunning, stunning work of art. Not only the art inside of the museum, but the architect and the sculptures and the statues and the art on the ceilings, the paintings, just incredible, next level. Here is the Savoir office, and it's actually an apartment, so this is not an office. So she was telling us how you can tell if it's an office or an apartment building, and this is actually different apartments, and the style that the office is actually an apartment style. And so she was telling us this area is more apartment living than office space, but they've rented it for filming purposes for Emily in Paris. And here is the restaurant where Emily asked them to eat for lunch, and they told her, no, we're busy. And then she saw them eating here, which is right outside of the office, which makes sense that they were snubbing her right by the office. And here is our amazing tour guide. She was asking everyone what they are wanting to see in Paris, and then she was giving recommendations, whether that was food recommendations, museum recommendations, things to do, and she was just talking and telling us just about different cultural norms and things that kind of experience. Here is another location that Emily was filmed at. I believe this was one of the marketing events that she threw for Savoir, and so just so fun seeing all of the different spots in real life and knowing that it wasn't just a green screen or AI, that it was actually filmed in Paris. I just think it makes the show even more amazing. The fact that we can just walk because they're all public spaces. I do wonder how the city feels when they are filming the shows, because obviously these are all public areas, and when you film, you have to block everything off. This is the last location of the walking tour, the famous spot where Mindy and Emily met in this beautiful garden, and each of these benches have different quotes and inscriptions on it. And so she knew exactly which bench based off the quote behind them. So we were able to go and find that bench that Emily and Mindy sat and had many conversations together. I just thought this was the coolest area. If I lived in Paris, I think I would come here all the time, whether it would be to read or journal. I just thought this was the coolest area. So this is our entire walking group that we had together. In every scene that we would go to, she would show us the photo from the show so we could see, oh, hey, this is where Emily was, or XYZ. And it was so funny because everyone kept talking about Emily as if she was a real person instead of a character in a show. So here is the famous bench, and there was obviously people sitting there. So I wasn't going to say, hey, please move so I can take a photo there, because it started downpouring as soon as we found this bench. Thank you for following the Emily in Paris walking tour with me. I was literally getting ready to film the outro on the bench where Emily met Mindy. It was so cute, but then it started raining, like downpour raining. We didn't have a poncho, we didn't have a rain jacket, we didn't have an umbrella. So I figured I would film the outro in the hotel. We are now in Disneyland Paris. We were staying at the Sequoia Lounge. But let me tell you about the Emily in Paris walking tour. If you are in Paris and you've even seen the show, even just like one episode of the show, I am telling you, you need to do this tour. So who we had was RT, and she was incredible. It was supposed to be a 90-minute tour and it ended up being 3 hours. She took us all over. We literally went to almost every single filming spot. And then she took us behind all of these other scenes. Like we saw the oldest restaurant in Paris. Like how cool is that? She was telling us so much history about Paris that had nothing to do with the show. And I just feel like the price we paid, I think we paid €37 each for this incredible walking tour, was amazing. I will say, so the opening part, we started at Emily's apartment, and then we went to Gabrielle's restaurant, and then right next to that was the little cafe, and then there was another cafe. So there was like 5 filming spots within like one little block radius. When we started filming, when I started filming this video, I had no idea that I was right in front of Emily's apartment. So I started filming like, hey everyone, welcome to Emily in Paris walking tour. And one of the residents from the apartment was walking in, and I wasn't filming anybody. I was just like using the apartment as like a shield. And she starts shouting at me like, shameless American, stop filming, like how disgusting. I honestly had no idea that was like right in front of Emily's apartment. And the tour guide was telling us that after season 1, it became so popular and people found out the address of the apartment and they were going there to get photos. They were even trying to like go inside to get a photo inside the apartment. Like, do not do that. And so I guess they wrote on graffiti on the door, Emily not welcome. So when they went to film season 2, there was like this big graffiti sign that said Emily not welcome. Obviously they are filming season 4, so that did not stop them. But I would say that if you're going to be going on the walking tour and you're going to be filming or taking photos, just beware that there are people who live there who might feel a little triggered when you take photo. I didn't like try to even touch the door or anything. I was just using the wall as like a little protection from the sun as I was filming my intro. So if you notice that the intro was a little bit scattered, that is because I literally just got shouted at and I was stopping the recording. Anyways, long rant over. The Emily in Paris walking tour was a 10 out of 10. I would do it even if you're like just seeing, again, one episode. The fact that you go through the entire city of Paris, you're walking through it all, you're learning so much history, and then at every single stop, they would show us the photo from the TV show. And it was just so cool to see how they film real things. It's not like on a set at all, and they
for the office is like an apartment, and it was just so amazing to see everything. I guess in February when they were filming season 4, they were doing the walking tour and they actually watched them film a couple of scenes, which I just think is so cool. So if you enjoyed this Walking with Emily tour behind the scenes, definitely hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. I've got so many videos out about my time in Paris and I would love for you to be a part of the journey.